Hey guys! So it's about a week and a half since I finished my juice feast, and I just wanted to give you a little update both in terms of um, how my blood sugar's doing a week and a half on, and also just to kind of go over my experience with my consultant today, which I posted on Facebook earlier. So some of you know that I saw my endocrinologist earlier this afternoon. So, to just recap on what's been happening with my blood sugars. So, when I finished the juice feast, I finished at a fasting blood sugar of 4.5. It stayed between about 4.5 and 5 for the first 3 or so days. But whilst it stayed at that kind of level, I was only on about 1,000 calories a day. Then mostly because, when I finished the feast, after having juices for just a week, it takes a little while for you to regain your appetite. So then I kind of realised that my body needed more energy than that and increased my calories to about 1,200 a day. All the while, by the way, being on a raw vegan diet with a carb intake of um, less than about 50 grams of carbs a day, and no sugars and no fruit sugars. So I increased it to about 1,500 calories a day, and 1,200 calories a day, and my blood sugars went up a little. 1,200 calories still didn't feel like it was enough energy. It wasn't like I was on the floor, energetically speaking, but I didn't feel very energized either. I didn't feel like I had energy to exercise. I didn't feel like I had any spare energy, basically. So I could, get up and get on with sort of basic day-to-day tasks, but I certainly didn't feel like I had any energy that I could expend anywhere. So then I went to about 1,500 calories, and that felt better in terms of energy, but also made my fasting blood sugars go to about 6.1, which is, I don't want, basically, I've experienced bringing my blood sugars down before, and it goes up a little bit and a little bit and a little bit, and that's how I kind of ended up being at having a fasting blood sugar of 9 point whatever it was before I started this. So I'm really aware that although they might seem like small increments, I don't want that trend to continue going upwards. Then I introduced my fasting days, which I had planned to do anyway. So on a Monday and a Thursday, I planned to do a juice fast day, or restricting to 500 calories on those days. And I did that yesterday, and that brought my fasting blood sugar back down to 5.3 this morning. So going forwards, I don't know how sustainable that is long term. If I can have somewhere between 1,500 to 2,000 calories on the non-fasting days, and if the 500 calorie fasting days will reset my blood sugars, any slight increases, if that resets them back down to somewhere between 4.5 and 5.5, then I'll be happy with that. I just have to see what happens. In terms of my meeting with my consultant, it was quite frustrating. I do really like my consultant. I kind of just want to get that out there. As a person, as a human being, I think he is compassionate. I think he, is a good man and a kind man. But I respect that he is coming from a medically trained background, and that is his, that's the stance that he comes from. So um, it's difficult because I am trying to do this from a kind of non typical, traditional, or modern medicine perspective, I suppose. Um, and I'm genuinely, I genuinely want to hear what he's got to say so that I can weigh up my options from a kind of rationed and reasonable kind of perspective. But it's tricky when I feel like I'm kind of hitting um, brick walls with him because he's not really appreciating or getting what I'm doing. So to cut a long story short, he wanted me to do an oral glucose tolerance test, which we had discussed on the phone prior to today's appointment. And the reason that he wanted me to do it is because my last fasting blood sugar that I had was considered to be in the pre-diabetic range. And in order for him to tick a box on a form basically to diagnose me as type 1 diabetic and to put me into the care system that they have for that, my fasting blood sugar needed to be above 7. However, I said to him, if my fasting blood sugar was above 7, would you be asking me to take this test? And he said, no, not at all. And so that's where we kind of got into a round and round conversation, because I said, well, there's been many occasions that my fasting blood sugar has been way above 7. As you know, if you've been following this, just a couple of weeks ago it was in the 9s, and that was despite having had absolutely no refined sugar for over 5 months now. So it was frustrating that just because on that particular day my fasting blood sugar was good because of the dietary changes that I've made, that he was now asking me to take a glass of thick syrupy sugar, which I feel that if my pancreas is already struggling, then that's just going to be a complete shock to my system, especially given that I've had such low carb and no sugar for such a long period of time. So we kind of went round and round the gardens on that a little bit. And yeah, and it was frustrating, but in the end, he did come to realise what I've been doing with my diet, because I showed him my I've got a meter that I test my blood sugars very regularly, and I showed him that meter, and he could see, there's no way that you can jinx the figures on that, so he could see for himself what how many times it has been above that level. And also he could see, because I diarise what I'm eating, he could see what I was eating. He did then make the comment that what I was doing he felt was overly extreme, but he conceded that he could see that it was working for me, and that also, that there clearly is, that there clearly are issues with the way that my body is handling glucose. And so that, in combination with the elevated GAD antibodies, meant that he felt satisfied to put me into a care program as a type 1 diabetic. So that was that. And then the next part of the consultation was that I really wanted to have a test called a C-peptide test, which tells us how much insulin my body is producing. He didn't want me to have it because he felt that it wouldn't change the diagnosis, and it also wouldn't change his care program. So then we went round and round the gardens with that a little bit, because I said, if I was to have higher blood sugar levels, would you do the test? And he said, oh yes, absolutely. And I said, well, it kind of feels a little bit unfair that because I'm being proactive with my care, and in being proactive in my care, I will most likely over the course of, time cost the NHS a lot less than somebody who wasn't being proactive. Um, but but I'm not being allowed to have the tests that I would be allowed if I was eating normally. So again, I'm very, very much condensing this. I was in there for an hour and a half. Poor man. Um, but in the end, he did say that I could have that test. He did say I could only have the one test, which is um, not really absolutely ideal, because I want to use it. I want to use it as a measure to know where I am at the moment, and I'd also like to be able to use it as a measure in the future to see if it's getting better or worse. But I'll have to cross that bridge sometime in the future. For now, I've managed to be able to get the test, so that's great. And he did leave. He did make a joke at the end of the consultation, saying that how come his objective out of our session was to get me to take an oral glucose tolerance test and to start me off on insulin, and not to do a CE peptide test. And we had somehow come away from the consultation with me not taking insulin and not having a oral glucose tolerance test, and him organising for me to have a C-peptide test. So he was in good humour. I think he's probably not used to having to deal with tricky customers like me. So he, to be fair to him, he dealt with me well in the end. However, I do feel like I've been through the spin cycle on a washing machine, but there we go. What else? Yeah, and then I had a conversation with the insulin specialist, and she kind of talked me through what would happen if I were to go on insulin, and that she wanted me to start off on a long-acting insulin. I can't remember the technical terminology, but basically a kind of insulin that will is like a background insulin, so you're not having to inject it at every meal. You have it, I think, once in the morning and once in the evening, or possibly even only once a day. And I'm not going to lie, there was a voice in the back of my head that was going, just take the insulin. Gosh, life would be so much easier. You'd be able to eat, what you liked. You'd be able to socialise more easily with people. You wouldn't have to do these calorie restrictive days. There was a part of me that was thinking, it was like the devil was sat on my shoulder going, go on, just take the easy route. But obviously, I've come this far. I don't know what's going to happen in the future, but I certainly want to give this more of a try before I start making decisions along those lines. And at least I'm more informed now as to what that will entail. One thing that I was really pleased about was that I thought that I'd have to take animal-based insulin, but apparently not. Apparently there's the type of insulin that they would want me to take is plant-sourced insulin. So, that is good, should I ever need to use it. As I said, to be completely frank with you, it's been a bit of a bouncy week. I think, when my fasting blood sugars started going up a bit, despite the fact that I'm still really not eating anything like what most people would be eating, that was a bit disheartening. And in combination with that, I was also invited to a couple of dinner engagements with people that I don't know well enough to be able to say, oh no, I won't be able to eat that, and I can't eat that, and I can't eat this. So then, feeling like, well, I either have to decline it altogether or just go and eat the food that I'm given, knowing that could set me back weeks. It is it is tricky to know what to do kind of for the best. But I'm reassured that my fasting day yesterday brought, seemed to have brought my blood sugars really nicely back into balance again today. So I'm just going to continue along that route for the foreseeable future and just see whether it feels maintainable, whether I can, whether I can have those extra calories, which will then allow me to exercise. Because the biggest reason that that I'm really struggling on having less than 1,500 calories is that I just literally don't have any energy to exercise, which I was kind of enjoying being able to exercise. So I just have to see where it goes. Yeah, and I think vlogging helps just kind of get it off my chest and feel a bit clearer about things. I went and bought myself a bunch of flowers after my appointment with my consultant, so I'm going to go and make those look pretty in a vase now, and then maybe go and sit out in the evening sunshine. And I'll keep you posted over the next few weeks as to how things unfold. So as always, thank you for watching, and I hope you found it a little bit interesting, and I hope you enjoy the gorgeous weather that we're having, and I'll speak to you soon. Okay, take care, bye.